Alright, we are live. Welcome everyone to this Sunday's edition of my live stream painting demonstration. My name is Eben, and today I thought I'd walk you through my thumbnailing process a little bit. I've had some requests for people asking about how to go about creating some awesome thumbnails for concept art here. Welcome and to this let me just turn that audio off here so I'm not repeating myself. So hopefully we'll be diving into how I go about creating some of these thumbnails like you see here. This is sort of the finished idea that I might present to a client, or just some ideas that I might create for myself and for future painting ideas. So if you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That would help me out quite a bit, and feel free to drop any questions in the chat. And if you have any comments or ideas about what you want to see in these thumbnails as I move forward, or if you have any requests for any future content from this channel, I would be happy to meet those requests. And you can find links to the brush pack that I use in this video in the description below, as well as links to my mentorship program. I know we have someone here already who has some questions about that, so if you have any questions about that, feel free to drop them in the comments. Welcome, Ines. Glad to see you are hopping on and listening. I know some people just like to keep this on while they're working on something else or while they're doing some paintings, so feel free to use the stream in whatever way you see fit. And I appreciate everyone who kind of stuck with me through some of the technical hurdles during the last couple streams. I did switch to a new system, and with that there were a lot of unanticipated changes that I had to work through, so hopefully that's all been smoothed out, but please let me know if there are any issues with the stream today or with the audio or anything. Just drop a comment and let me know. So let's talk about thumbnails here. So what you see here is just some rough ideas that I put together, I would say over the course of an hour and a half maybe, so that's kind of what we're shooting for today's stream. And what we're trying to do with these is create a quick concept of something. And depending upon what you're doing this for, if you have an existing brief that you're working off of for a client or something, you might be a little more focused as far as your subject matter and your general execution. But for this, I'm just talking about some free flow ideas. I just want to create some new things, some new concepts that I can then later turn into paintings. So the key here is we're not going to spend too much time on each of these. We're really only going to spend so much time as we need to get our idea across and to firmly establish our composition and our idea within this little thumbnail here. That also means we're not going to be zooming in a lot. We're not going to be really worrying about a lot of those fine-tunements that we would get to later on in the painting process. For now, we're just trying to get some ideas down. So let me check out the chat here. Welcome Vieira. And hope y'all are doing well this Sunday. It's a beautiful day here in Vermont. I got a new desk set up here, which is awesome. I get some light streaming in, some sunlight coming in from the my left here, and I can see all my plants now. They're not hidden behind my computer monitors, which is awesome. And I'm just excited to do some painting here. So let's use this as kind of a template, and let's create a new canvas. And I wouldn't worry about getting anything that's really high resolution at this point, but I'll just start with my typical 2000 by 3000 pixels. We can always increase or decrease the resolution as needed, but it's not a huge deal at this point in the process because we really are more concerned about creating the idea This is not something that we're going to be printing or anything. It may be something you show to a client or something like that, but otherwise, this is for our purposes here. All right. Now let's start with that. I liked this background color I used here. That just I'm just using sort of a dark neutral gray, so that'll kind of help a lot of our other values pop here. And you know I like my values to pop. I'm gonna create a new layer, and we can just create some random ideas here. So I'm gonna use a variety of different canvas sizes. I'm just going to create a new layer for each one. We can even do a couple really wide varieties here. Let's see, maybe here we can do a combination of, that's sort of like a 4x3 canvas, and then over here we have more of a tall, skinny canvas, something like that. Of course, I keep forgetting to create a new layer with these, but it's not a huge deal. I just do that so I can create a pixel lock on the layer and paint within that layer, and we'll get to that in a minute here. For now, I'm just going to kind of create some different shapes. Create a nice, interesting wide one here. I'm using the Control Shift N to create a new layer. This is going to be a tiny one here. Maybe we'll do something different for that here. Let's delete that, and then here we can create another tall one. New layer. Of course, there are a lot of different ways you can set up your thumbnail arrangements. It's totally up to you and how you want to present your work. I prefer to do it this way. I like to, make sure I'm painting within these guidelines, and I like to keep it fairly presentational. As if I were showing it to someone, even if I'm not necessarily using this for a particular paid project or anything like that. I just want to keep things looking nice, so keep the borders relatively consistent. And here, let's see, I'm gonna cut and paste this out into a new layer. Same with this one. Yes, Ines is giving us some great tips from the client side of things. She's been doing that a lot in the Discord chat, which is awesome, really helpful. By the way, you can join the Discord chat from the link in the description as well. It's just a fun thing we do during the week to just chat about art, share our work, get feedback from fellow artists, that kind of thing. And yes, Ines is saying she likes the neutral colors for the thumbnails, and that's usually my default for, if I'm creating some client work. I will start with a grayscale version and introduce colors later on in the process. This is just usually more helpful for conveying the overall composition and that kind of thing, and conveying an idea really quickly in a very readable format. Of course, you can go about this. You can do color thumbnails. It just gets a little bit more complex, and generally it's a bit easier to process the value sketch as both the artist and as the viewer. So let's see, Queldar, I believe, I hope I'm pronouncing that right there, is asking, do you take on beginners for the mentorship? I've only been painting/drawing for less than a year. The answer is yes, absolutely. My mentorship program is for people, for beginner to intermediate level artists. If you're looking at my artwork and you say, I think I could have something to learn from that, then this program is for you. If you look at my artwork and you think, I think I could do better, maybe it's not for you. That's really the only criteria here. And so absolutely, if you're a beginner artist, you're welcome to participate in the mentorship program. I have a few different options for different, it's basically a pretty flexible program. You can book lessons as needed, or you can join the full mentorship, which is more of a long-term sort of monthly subscription option, where you can really create, where we kind of go over a more long-term plan for your artwork. But yeah, if you really have no experience, or very little experience, if you've been practicing for a year or less, that's totally fine. We start wherever you are and we make a plan as to how we want to get you to your art goals. So I hope that answers your question. Feel free to drop any more if you have some in the chat there. Well, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there, Inez. I think if you studied this for 100 years, you would definitely be better. But there's I don't know. There's really nothing special about what I do. I've just it happens to be something I've spent a lot of time working on. Something I kind of already had a bit of an aptitude for as a child, but that was really just got me 10 to 20% of the way there. The rest is really, putting in the time, making a daily practice out of it, and that's really all there is to it. So let's start with our first thumbnail here. I'm not going to zoom in too far. Maybe we can go into our focus mode here. That looks really nice. And there are a few ways to go about this, but the way I like to do it, especially for this more kind of free-form, sort of personal approach, is I just like to start out with some sort of random sort of marks and shapes within these canvases, and sort of take it from there. Viera, I'm glad you've heard a lot of positive things about the mentorship. We've actually we just wrapped up our first group session, which was a lot of fun and a great learning experience for me. Some of those people have been really active in the Discord chat recently, sharing a lot of work, which is great. I appreciate all that. I'm actually working on shifting over to a new website right now, which has been taking quite a bit of time. I've been learning WordPress, which has been very interesting, but it's going to be a great new website. I'm really excited about it. It's really going to streamline a lot of the services and digital downloads and prints that I offer. So keep an eye out for updates on that as well. All right, enough about me and all the fun stuff I'm doing on the website and the mentorship. Let's grab a neutral color here. I'm just going to grab a gray. And I'm going to go down to, really it doesn't matter so much what brush we use at this point. I usually only stick to 2 or 3 for this kind of process, but I like to have a combination between a textured brush and a mixer brush and then some other kind of neutral digital brush. I'm going to go ahead and select all of my layers here and lock transparent pixels with this little button here. And that's going to make sure I only paint within the lines. You can see if I make some marks, it will stay within these lines here. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to kind of start out with some random marks here. And I'm going to bring my color swatch over here. And we won't really need it too much, but I'm just going to use that to start with some random values here. So I'm just sort of thinking about, I'm not really thinking about anything, to be honest. You know, the key here is to just sort of make some marks and let the canvas lead the way. Let the painting lead the way. The less you have to do with this process, the better. And you know, that's just sort of a general principle I have with artwork, but I find it's especially helpful for idea generation, to really look for what you see within the canvas rather than trying to impose your own ideas and objectives upon it. So I kind of started out with this sort of quick slashy motion, and I realized that kind of looked like some beams of light. So I'm kind of running with that. It's starting to look a bit like the interior of a cave or something like that. So with that in mind, I'm probably going to place our focal area somewhere around here. Have something that's sort of illuminated by this light. I'm glad to hear that my enthusiasm is infectious today. I strive to infect others with enthusiasm. That's all. Yeah, we can have something really nice and high contrast over here. I'm not sure what yet, but we're just going to use some lighter values for that area, and we're going to use these values, and we're going to use them here and not anywhere else. Maybe a little bit in this light source up here, but we really want our focus to strongly align with this area over here. Let's grab my mixer brush here, the wet brush. We can do a little bit of atmospheric stuff as well. Sort of create some fog, and notice I don't even really know what it is that I'm creating at this point. I pretty much just know the general setting, the general lighting scheme, and the overall composition, and that's really the most important thing to be conscious of at this point. But I'm getting like this, I'm reminded of, like, what was it? There's like this scene from it was Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's like one of the last scenes in the film. It's the big reveal where they enter this cave and all the pirates are there with the cursed gold, and there's this similar lighting scheme within that cave, and the light is highlighting the chest of gold, so there's something like where when the pirates are in the moonlight, they turn into skeletons, and I don't know, I'm just getting some of those vibes here. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna put a little explorer here who's sort of entering this cave for the first time. Maybe they even have a hat. And we don't have to worry too much about exactly what their pose is at this point. I'm just going to get a general sort of shape here. And I'm not creating new layers within this either, by the way. And that's something I usually don't do, even in my full paintings so much. But especially here with these thumbnails, you don't want to worry about creating a bunch of layers. We're just sort of we're just working in one area here. This is starting to feel a little bit like Indiana Jones, actually. So that's another inspiration we can draw on here as well. Got a little Indiana Jones here, and let's see what else. You know, this painting doesn't really need much else, and that's kind of the point where you can just say, all right, you know, time to move on. But maybe we can have a little bit of ambient lighting here, sort of just glancing on the side of this character here. Maybe just something that'll help outline him a little bit more. And then some of that light can sort of hit the ground next to him. That's kind of nice. I don't know if you guys can... Hopefully you guys can see. This is pretty... I'm working pretty small, and I'm deliberately staying zoomed out for this purpose, but you should be able to see this in the stream as well. Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear you're doing the Tyler Edlin mentorship as well. He's really great. We're actually we're doing some stuff with him at Evident soon. So you know, this is, you know, my own art channel, but I also work with Evident, and we do online art courses there. So we're actually doing some events with Tyler coming up in these next couple weeks to the next month. So that's really awesome. Tyler's great. He's seems like a really great dude, and I love his artwork. He's a great teacher, so highly recommend checking him out and his YouTube channel as well. And I'll drop a link for Evident in the description below as well, because that's also a great resource for artists. Nice. I'm really liking the simplicity of this so far, and you know, the lighting I feel like is really helping to accent this character a little bit, and we have you know, maybe we can create a little bit more clarity around this distant object. I'm not really sure what it is, but maybe it's some kind of shrine or temple or statue. Either way, you know, we're kind of keeping our highlights to this one little area, and then everywhere else is just sort of more aligned with the general color palette here. But you know, honestly, I don't think this really needs anything else. These are like the key elements of the painting, and I think we can move on. So that took, you know, what, 10 minutes or so. I wouldn't recommend necessarily spending any more time than that. I think my painting may have froze here. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this because I never remember to do that. Let's say live stream thumbnails. Yeah, this is just something that Photoshop does to act up every now and then, so I'm not too concerned about it. We'll just go ahead and reopen that, and here we are again. Let me check out the chat here, catch up a little bit. Awesome. I'm glad to hear you're enjoying the scene already. I'm a big fan of this one as well. Yeah, I really enjoy that. You know what we can do actually is we can let's do a nice. I would usually wait till the end to do this, but just because I really want this to pop, I'm gonna do a quick little effect here. I'm gonna go down to outer glow, and I'm just gonna drop a little border on this. Just real subtle. And that's really going to make it shine. Awesome. All right, let's move on. Right, for this next one, same deal. I have no idea. Let's start with a different brush. Actually, you know, I usually like to start with some kind of some kind of overall. I don't like to start with blank white usually, so let's go back to our textured digital brush and let's just get rid of most of that. Now let's go back to our. We're going to try something with the dry brush here. This is a vertical arrangement, so I'm not really. This is I usually don't do vertical arrangements quite as much, so this is going to be interesting. Sort of switching between the mixer brush, which will sometimes create random spots of color, and I don't know why, but I'm just sort of messing around with some lines of flow here. This is sort of a slightly different approach, but same in principle. I'm just sort of experimenting with some different views we can have. I think with the vertical framing, it's often really either you're looking up or you are looking down. It's a good way to frame things usually. I'm actually seeing receding plane here with these strokes that I've established. We have a nice foreground here. It's a bit closer, and then as we move out, we're kind of going off into some distant thing here. So maybe I'll make a bit of a skyline. Have some lines of perspective. I'm using my brush strokes to create perspective as I work. And then out here, maybe we can do a centered composition. I don't usually do those, but sometimes it is effective. Oh yeah, got some kind of imposing mountain or fortress here. This is a very looks like a very iconic kind of scene. And I'm not worried too much about those little flecks of color that the mixer brush is throwing in there at this point. I'm just focused on the overall shapes of overall value, and we can always desaturate it later. Awesome. All right. Maybe we can even push those highlights a little bit more, create a nice strong silhouette. We can even use our lasso tool here really quickly to just establish our silhouette. And then we can reverse that selection and paint in around it. Let's switch back to our textured digital brush, just so we can get a bit more of a stronger silhouette here. Nice. Now we can use some of those lighter and mid-tone values to sculpt our landscape a little bit. We can have a little bit of light cast along the right side of this. Not enough to dilute the silhouette. We still want the silhouette to be strong. We can have enough to sort of highlight the base. We can create some sharper lines where there's some crags in the rock. Sounds like my neighbor has the ATV out again, so we might be hearing that a little bit. That's fun. You can do a little bit of highlight around the edge here. It's a little bit stylized, but that's kind of nice. And just because we can, why not make a little path traveling through our landscape here. Maybe we can create a few rocks and a few variations on the way, just to show that there's some overlap happening. And our road can emerge into the foreground. And that's pretty much it. Let's copy the layer style of our last thumbnail and paste it on this one. So we have that nice subtle border there. By the way, something you can do at the end of your thumbnailing process as well is just bring up the value range, just so it's nice and clear. So you're using that full range of highlights and shadow values. And you can adjust that depending upon the mood you want to set with your piece. But in general, I like to use the full range because it's higher contrast and it shows up well from a distance. Welcome, Jose and Ankara here. It's going well. We're just going through some thumbnails and talking a little bit about how I approach that process. All right, let's move on to number 3, and this is kind of fun. We have a wide canvas here, so we have a lot of opportunities to create some vastness and some distance and some depth. So I'm just going to start with some horizontals here, just to sort of set the tone. Whoops. Looks like that texture is repeating a little bit. I'm going to have to adjust that with this particular brush. The great news is, whenever I make an adjustment to the brush pack, if you have already downloaded the pack, you will get access to all those updates every time I change something, every time I add a new brush. You get those updates as well. So the value only increases with time. Here I'm seeing an opportunity for a really nice, expansive landscape. I'm going to create some loose perspective lines here in the foreground, just to show generally that this is a 3D space. Maybe we can even slip in a foreground right here near the bottom. So we have a few different layers of our landscape here. And what's off in the distance, we don't really know yet. Maybe it's another mountain. Or maybe it's just a landscape. Sometimes the landscape can just speak for itself. We don't have to add anything necessarily, but we can create interesting features. We can still create some kind of visual pathway, even if it's not a literal pathway. Something to guide the viewer through the piece. Maybe there's some trees over here on the left. Now, of course, I'm always giving my students grief for creating trees near the edge of the canvas because it can be tricky. Because when a tree is close to the edge of the canvas, it forms a lot of small, high contrast objects, which can draw the eye away from the main content of the painting and towards the edge and the corner of the canvas. So there are a few ways around that. One of which is to reduce the overall contrast there, or to use some softer edges so that the eye isn't so drawn to that area. And that's something that you can do later on in the painting process. But for now, we're just going to lower the contrast. First, I'm going to create a few details on these trees here. Let's use our thin, wet brush here and just sort of pull out some shapes. Alright, simple enough. And I'm just going to go in with my soft round brush with the darker value. I'm just going to go in lightly over that to slightly reduce that contrast, thus drawing the eye away from that area. We can also use the tree branches to direct focus over to some other areas of our painting. But we don't want to get too wrapped up in details for now. So let's set up our primary focal area. Something interesting about the landscape. I think maybe I'll have something like I'm thinking about like Pride Rock from The Lion King. Just some interesting feature jutting out, sort of contrasting the rest of the visual language of the landscape. And then we can use some lighter values around that area. To create more contrast. And we can establish some other layers in this landscape as well. Maybe, just to balance this composition a little bit, we can throw in a few more trees on the other side. All right, interesting. Maybe a bit overly complex, but let's move on to something else. First, we can, of course, check our layers or our levels, and then we can give that nice border. All right, moving on. Oh, are we having a conversation about daylight savings, huh? Yeah, that one really threw me for a loop. As I had my live stream last week, the day after the clock changed, and nobody nobody knew what time it was. Because for me it was noon, but I did not realize that for other time zones, they either don't change or they have a different time. You know, for example, CET, right now they're 7 hours ahead, but their daylight savings is actually later on in March. So for about 2 weeks, they're going to be 7 hours ahead, and then after that, they're going to be 6 hours ahead once again. Very, very bizarre. I guess it changes by country too, or apparently in Australia too. They even change daylight savings procedures by city or by province. There's a couple different areas. So you could actually just be traveling through the country and sort of enter a different interpretation of the daylight savings pattern. So, interesting stuff. Anyway, I suppose if you are trying to catch these live streams, just do a quick Google search of what time it is in the Eastern Standard Time Zone, so you can plan accordingly. Also, you can check the YouTube link. They have a little countdown there, which is really nice. All right, let's move on to the next thumbnail here. All right, we have our sort of a standard, I would guess around 4x3 canvas here. Let's try something a little different here. We can work with our white background. And usually when we do that, usually makes things look a bit bright and foggy. When we're plotting out our compositions, we want to think about, in terms of our overall value structure, we want about 2/3 of our painting to be sort of one general value, and then 1/3 to be about another general value, and then within that, use smaller accents of highlights and shadows. So I'm going to start with a roughly 2/3 white, or light value, it's not going to be completely white. In fact, we can just use our levels to take that down a little bit. Just so we're reserving our brightest highlights for one area. But for the most part, we have 2/3 of our canvas in an upper highlight range and around 1/3 in our sort of lower mid-tone register. So let's start with that, sort of a jumping off point here. And then within these different zones, we can create more subtle variations that tell us a little bit about what's going on. I can already see a foreground here, and we're kind of looking out over a vast, foggy, atmospheric landscape. Let's bring out that highlight range I was talking about earlier. Let's use that to sort of highlight the silhouette of a really nice, majestic mountain out there in the distance. Can also use that highlight to start creating some cloud shapes. And you know what? Let's grab this mountain. I'm just gonna copy and paste it and move it over a little bit, just so it's not directly in the center. That way, we can even show... Whoops, have to merge that down and lock it again. That way we can show some of these really nice cloud shapes too. Maybe we can show a little path kind of going around the foreground here. And then, right before that path turns and goes down into the valley, what if we had a little building? Nothing too imposing, maybe even just a humble little shack or small village here. We can make this mountain even more dramatic. Maybe add a little bit of lighting to it on one side. Really show how the landscape is moving. Yes, I'm channeling Bob today. I don't have the, I should have the bobblehead here. Have you guys seen my Bob Ross bobblehead? It's awesome. Just making some big sweeping movements with the brush here. Rohan, for sure. Absolutely. And we can do a little snow on the mountain over here. Probably not. It's not going to help our silhouette, will it? Absolutely, though. Always drawing inspiration from Lord of the Rings. You know, I might want to bring. This is all pretty cool, but I'm seeing the peak of interest in this area. It's a little too far to the right, so I'm gonna move this over and warp it a little bit. Merge that down. Sort of smooth out some of these sections here. Lock those pixels again. And then we can use our lasso tool to be a little bit more explicit with these building shapes. Can use our brick stroke brush, which is the mouthful, isn't it? Brick stroke brush. There it is. Let's tap around that. I'm reversing that selection, painting within it, and then within that selection we can actually even grab a midtone value. Just go across to show the upper side of that roof there. And I'm just trying not to select a green color. It just seems to want to do that, but look at that. Alright, seeing a pretty limited value range here, so let's just push that up. It's a nice one. Let's give it that nice border and move on. Yes, Jose, this will be available on the channel for your viewing at any time. Or are you talking about uploading the final image? Either way, I'll be sharing this with everyone. Just gonna check out the comments here. Inez is saying, a lot of times from the publisher side, I look for a composition that tells a story I can understand in 2 seconds, because that's about as much time as a book cover gets to initially draw in readers. That's absolutely correct, and that does not apply just to book covers, of course. It applies to everything you do, anything you present, any kind of work you show to the world. Unfortunately, or for better or for worse, our attention spans are dwindling. Especially with social media and all these bright, colorful things that are available to us on the internet. The average attention span, I should say, is more limited. So, whether you want to cater to that or not is up to you. But as an artist, regardless of that, it's definitely worth developing concepts, compositions, and ideas that are instantly readable and that are recognizable for what they are within seconds. And Inez is absolutely right about that. And that's not just, once again, not just for book covers, it's about any art you create. You want it to be immediately readable, and that's why this thumbnailing process is super useful, and why it's important to practice doing this without going into all these details. Because you want to be able to look at this and quickly understand what it's conveying from a distance, even from way out here. Can you look at these thumbnails and just get a general idea of the space, even if you don't know exactly what's happening? Can you understand them? So this is important to think about. Alright, we're coming up on the end of our first hour here. I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break, and then I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We're going to continue with the rest of these thumbnails over the next hour and create some awesome ideas. Alright, I'll see you in a second. Okay, we are back. And Inez is asking if I do in fact have a Bob Ross bobblehead, and I do. He's right here. Isn't that fun? Here, check this out.
You know me. I think there ought to be a big old tree right about there.
Oh,
Just give him a friend. Everybody needs a friend.
you heard it from the man himself. Everybody needs a friend. Today, Bob Ross is going to be my friend. He's going to hang out right here. I can't really get him in frame right now, but trust that he's here, watching over, making sure we're doing awesome stuff today. And welcome, Eggnog Stick. It's quite the name. Glad to hear that you love my work. And hope you enjoy the stream. Feel free to drop any comments as we move forward here. I know that was pretty intimate. Let's see what else he's got.
This be a good place for my little squirrel to live.
All right, one more.
Let's put a few little highlights in here, just to make them little rascals just sparkle in the sun.
Yeah, he knows about the highlights. All right, this is gonna be. I'm gonna do this every time now. You're gonna get a little Bob Ross soundbite as relayed through a tiny speaker and a bobblehead into my microphone. All right, let's move on to our 5th thumbnail here. Now, how are we going to do this? I don't know. Let's just dive in and find out. Let's start with a different kind of textured brush here at first. Let's just do some quick stuff like that. Just tap it in. That's I can't get Bob out of my head here. Just tap it in. All right. So we got some nice texture down there, just as a baseline. Then we can go in and smooth out some of that texture with our mixer brush, so we create a nice contrast between those textured areas and the smoother areas around them. Let's try something a little, I don't know, a little more unconventional, I guess. A little more closed. Let's have some vertical shapes going up along the side here, like trees or the base of a mushroom or some kind of cliff. Now look at this. Can you visualize anything yet? Can you see yourself there? Can you put yourself there? Can you imagine the lighting, the space? These are the questions you want to ask yourself as you proceed through this process. If you can't see anything quite yet, make a few more marks, start to shape it a little bit more, then check back in. See if there's anything that's really sticking out to you. For me, I'm seeing some kind of wooded area, or not even necessarily trees, just sort of surrounded by these giant structures, with a little bit of a pathway going up the middle here. Let's use a selection and quickly create that pathway that I'm imagining. Let's grab sort of a lighter highlight-ish color. We can use that to sort of plot this in. Might be just a bit too bright, so let's dial that back a bit. Okay. Let's solidify this foreground here. Let's try to figure out what exactly these structures are. Maybe they are trees. I kind of like the giant mushroom idea, though. We'll see. We don't have to make any decisions quite yet. I am seeing some opportunities for some light. So I'm just gonna tap in a little bit of light bloom around these areas. Because our destination is right up there at the top. Notice, with these shapes, I'm allowing them to converge towards the top of the canvas. They're all kind of bending inward a little bit. And that's helping to create a sense of perspective. It's making this whole area look fairly vast. And way up here, we have something really interesting. Not sure what it is, though. All we know is we have a path. And we know how to get there. And have a few areas where that light is just trickling in. We can use our splatter brush even. To create that sort of dappled, mystical effect. And then we can go in once again with that nice highlight color. And let's just quickly map out the silhouette of where it is we're going. And I think that's it. Let's put that nice border on there. Let's check our values. Maybe give it a bit more highlights. And move on. Welcome, Matt. I'm glad to hear that this is possibly your favorite stream ever. I'm quite enjoying it myself. Alright, let's move on to the next thumbnail. Let's try a similar strategy here. Just some loose. Well, we can start out with a neutral value. Now remember when I said with the vertical framing of things, sometimes it can be a really useful opportunity to create some perspective, either looking up or looking down. So let's experiment with that a little bit. Let's try something where we're looking down. Maybe over the lip of some kind of canyon, or we don't really know. We'll only include enough foreground as we need to show where we are in relation to this area. And then we can go in, start to map out those perspective shapes. Since I've already established it a little bit, we're just going to have lighter values at the top where more light is coming in. They're going to be converging towards this area way down at the bottom. We don't know what's down there, but we're about to find out. Stay tuned. Actually, we may not find out, to be completely honest. It's looking like no light is reaching this spot. Well, thank you, Jose. I'm glad to hear your experience, or you've perceived an improvement. I appreciate that, and I think you're right. It takes a lot of time, but when did I start? I started this channel. Well, I started actually putting videos on this channel last summer. Well, towards the end of the summer, I think. Yeah, around July, August maybe. And this is the 36th live stream. And it's been really useful for me as well, just as something to remind me to have some kind of consistent practice. Outside of, the other types of practice I do, this is just, it's nice. It's pretty low-key. It's a great opportunity to connect with other artists, and so on. I'm just going to create some other, sort of like some mid-ground shapes here. I don't know how exactly they're going to play into everything, but... Now remember, we're looking down from above. So we're mostly going to be seeing the top planes of these shapes. So we can create some little areas where we can see maybe some ledges that we can walk on. We can use our lasso tool to really make a clear divide. Maybe we can see the top of a distant plane out here as well. I don't know exactly what's happening here, but we're just kind of sculpting, you know? We're not worried too much about exactly what we're showing. More about shapes of value and how it's all working together. This is interesting. And I'm not totally sure about this area here, so I'm just gonna simplify it. I think our overall value structure here is a little unclear. So I'm going to create a bit more contrast around the bottom here. It's going to be very misty. We can show a little bit more of that top plane. Let's bring out our mixer brush. Maybe start to balance out some of these harder edges with some softer spaces. That's kind of interesting. You kind of pull down that lighter value, get some texture there. So we have kind of a hole in the earth here. And just to give things a bit of a twist here, we can go ahead and create our character here. And once again, we're kind of looking down from above. So we're going to think about that while we're creating this character. There we go. Maybe we can just do a bit more lighting on there. Not really sure what they're doing, but they've got some kind of flag or staff or whatever it is. Okay. Pretty simple. Maybe could use a bit more textural variety, or maybe a bit more refinement of this character here. Maybe we can show exactly where this path comes around. Just so we have a way to get from the beginning to the end. Maybe we'll continue this ravine into the distance there. And it can end with something right there. I don't know what it is yet, but that's enough for now. Bring those highlight values up. Pop on that outer glow. And move on. Oh, I appreciate hearing that, Jose. The early artist content, right? You get the exclusive sneak peek of what's to come. I'm glad this has been helpful for you, or as much so as it has been for me. Yeah, it's been fun. I'll keep this going. I'm very very glad to finally have, I think, finally figured out exactly what I need to do technically to make this happen after like more than 6 months. So that's a relief. I can kind of focus a little more on painting. All right, let's move on to our third to last thumbnail here. Suppose it's useless to try to paint white on white. I don't know. I'm just gonna be very random with this one. Get real loose with it. Some texture. More texture. Even some color. Oh my god. No color. Not yet. But this is... we're already setting the tone for what this is. It's going to be a bit gritty and chaotic. I don't know what it is yet. Maybe we could do some kind of interior scene. Or some kind. I don't know. I'm not gonna create any kind of expectation here. We're just gonna see where this goes. Keep our minds open to the possibilities of what might happen here. Starting to think this could be a river. Something like that. Oh, I'm just getting the feel for this strong diagonal composition here. I don't know how it's gonna pan out, but maybe, just maybe, we'll have some light coming in from over here. Whoa. Oh, I think I see it now. Do you see it? It's definitely an interior, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. We are painting a pandemic metaphor. The crowded market. We can do that for one of our thumbnails here. Just remind me before we move on to the next one. So this is some kind of interior space with a light right there. And maybe there's also a bottomless pit. Not totally sure. Been really into the ravines lately. Not sure about this shape over here. Let's keep the diagonal theme going. I'm not sure how all this works together at this point. But it does look like we might be able to extend the shape. like that. So like we're at the beginning of this pathway. We're looking out. There's some reflected light here along the interior of the wall. And then, to complete, we're going to use those diagonals again. Oh, we can use our rough comb brush. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Should have started with that. Alright, it's simple, but effective. And this is something that we can always build on later. If we have some other ideas, but it's a good template. Okay. Give it a nice border here, and move on. 2 more. Here we go. The final countdown. Now, Jose has been pestering me for for months to create a scene with a crowd in it. Now I'm going to try to do that in one of these thumbnails, because I think it's about time. I actually did do a stream where there was kind of a crowd, but I never ended up finishing it. It's on the long list of projects that I still need to finish. But let's think about where a crowd would be. So we're going to go into this a little less abstractly. Even though I'm starting with these abstract shapes, I still have an idea in mind. I want to have somewhere that's sort of architectural, because that's where you would usually find a crowd. Maybe some kind of marketplace. Some kind of city. So let's just establish some building shapes here. I'm seeing some light coming in from the outside, some sunlight, or maybe a street light. And another building right here. With some reflected light coming up on the bottom. By the way, I haven't been doing this much yet, but we can always flip our canvas as well and check it out from a different angle. For now, I think all this is going to be mostly in shadow. And we're going to have our crowd somewhere around here. Now, to be fair, this is not something I attempt often. This is a experiment. But we're going to try it anyway. I'm going to create some other sort of distant building shapes in the background here. And then maybe there's some kind of storefront or shop here. Let's give it a nice little roof. And then, beneath that, will probably be a little shadier. So we can use a soft round brush and create a bit of shadow there. So maybe down here we have a table or something. Or maybe we'll just have a door. We're getting a little bit complex here, but we just want to sort of lock in some of our basic elements here. And we still want to have a highlighted area. So we don't want to draw too much attention away from our focal area, which I'm thinking is probably going to be somewhere around here, but I'm not sure yet. To balance things out, I'm going to create another door. So, we're thinking about a crowd. Just want to think abstractly in terms of shapes of people's bodies and heads in a large space. And truthfully, I don't think I've picked the best perspective for this, because it doesn't give us a huge opportunity to explore depth within the crowd, which is really gonna help us convey the idea. But we can maybe have Say we have a character somewhere up in the foreground who's kind of watching over things. Or maybe a few. Maybe it's just the silhouette of one. Alright, we'll worry about that guy later. For now, let's think about representing these people. I'm gonna use this rough comb brush. Sort of show where people might be congregating here. And they're gonna be going all the way out. Now here. We'll be casting some shadows too. So I'm going to include those shadows. Maybe down here, sort of mid-ground, we have a building. Or the roof of a building. To mirror that one across the street. So this guy has some kind of vantage point here. And we can continue to create these rough crowd shapes here. And the further away from our focal area we get, the less specific we'll have to be. Maybe here and there we'll just have a single person. Or a couple people together. And then at the beginnings of each shadow, create other people. Out and about. And of course they will get smaller as we recede into the distance. They're always going to be casting a bit of a shadow here, though. Every now and then we can show some of that light coming through. We can show a little section here around the edge of the building. It's a slightly different value. Where people can lurk, hang out. Maybe just for the sake of repetition and rhythm, we'll create another roof over here. A little shadow underneath. It's looking pretty interesting. I'm almost thinking of like the Mandalorian here. Maybe this can be like a bounty hunter, stalking his prey. Be kind of a sci-fi scenario here. We have some bits of highlights happening down here. Not highlights, cast light. Set this on. Linear dodge. All of that. It's pretty cool. Maybe all of this, we can simplify this value. A little bit of atmosphere. Yes, of course, we can't forget the vote. We'll do that at the end. And then one more thing I just want to do is just sort of highlight people's... anywhere where the top of their... usually just the top of their head or their shoulders is facing upwards. Creating some variations there. We can be a bit more specific around these areas. Maybe create some lines of light. Maybe single out a particular person that's the target here. So when we create a focus in our painting, we also tell more of a story about who this guy is searching for. So we're going to kind of highlight them with a little stronger silhouette here. Boom. That's pretty much it. Although I'm going to fix this here. Okay. That's pretty cool. Kind of there's a lot of story possibilities here. Does kind of look like the Mandalorian, doesn't it? Alright, let's move on. Oh, can't forget. Check our levels. Those look good. paste our border because it looks nice. And let's move on to our final thumbnail here. We have a very tall vertical one. This is pretty unusual. So we're going to get creative with it. Feel free to drop any ideas about what you want to see with this last thumbnail here. Otherwise, I'm just going to dive in and see what happens. Already seeing a tree, perhaps? Dark forest with smoke, a jungle. All right, we are already on the way to both of those ideas. So let's see what happens. Let's create a little foreground here. Maybe we'll keep it fairly minimal. Have some smoky atmosphere here. What can we do? We can use our foliage brush. I know you've been waiting for an opportunity to use the foliage brush. So here it is. Whoa. Wow, this is a nice tree. I'm really a big fan. Got this epic music. So over the top. So necessary. got our brush dabs brush as well. Can you use that to tap in some detail? Ooh, these kind of look like waterfalls. Interesting. Let's make a quick selection here, so we can establish a nice silhouette. Create a nice flowiness to all of this. It's a technical term. Seeing a little bit of value changes here. Just want to make sure that's all consistent. Using the wand tool to select my tree shape. Then we can go in and sort of smooth some of that out. I'm zooming in a bit too far, I think. Let's dial that back a bit. Maybe, just maybe, we can have a little person for scale here. And that's about it. Check our values. Get those nice highlights in there. And add a little outer glow. Okay. Last thing we have to do here. This is the most exciting part. We're going to create a new layer. And we're going to get to numbering. Okay, number 1. Number 2. 3. Sometimes I like to do a little circle around the number, but I didn't leave myself much space here. Let's say this is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Let the voting commence. I will pick one of these to develop in my next live stream next week. The thumbnail with the most votes will be the winner. So feel free to drop your vote in the chat here or in the comments below, and we'll make it happen. In the meantime, it's been a pleasure doing this stream with you guys. Appreciate you all showing up, and I appreciate those of you who have subscribed to the channel already. If you haven't, please do so. This has been an awesome Sunday stream with you guys. I appreciate you showing up. It's nice to see all the regulars in the chat here, Vieira and Jose and Inez, and all of the newcomers as well. So appreciate you all, and give this a try on your own if you are an artist yourself. It's a lot of fun. Even if you're not an artist, give it a try. Maybe you can become one. Once again, you can find links to the mentorship program as well as the brushes I use in this video in the description below, as well as the link for our Discord channel where we chat about stuff like this throughout the week. So, thank you all once again for joining me. That's it for today. I will catch you next Sunday for the live stream where I will pick one of these thumbnails and develop it further. And keep an eye out this Wednesday when I release another video on my channel, as I do every Wednesday. So, hope you all have a great afternoon. I'll catch you next time.